Okay, in this video, we'll talk about how to prepare and write up your response to Paper 1, Question 4 of the AQA English Language Exam. We'll be taking a look at some source material and a couple of extracts from student responses, so remember you can always pause the pod if you need a little more time to read through what's on screen. Let's start by looking at a sample question. Remember, Question 4 is worth 20 marks, that's a quarter of the marks for this paper. You'll be given a section of the source text to focus on and asked to respond to a statement about it. In this example, the statement is that, in this extract, the writer creates a sense of mystery and suspense. You're then asked, to what extent do you agree? A good way to prepare and plan for this question is to pick out and highlight roughly 3 good chunks of the source to work with and focus on. Let's take a look at some of Student A's planning process as an example. They've picked out 2 interesting sentences from this first half of the chosen section of the extract, as well as some choice quotes. Can you see why these might be useful in answering this task? It's a really good idea to annotate those highlighted sections and plan carefully for this longer task. One top tip would be to think about what's suggested to you, what you can infer or read between the lines, and then make notes about this. For example, as part of their planning, Student A has noted that the suggestion of an unseen presence adds an air of threat or danger. They've also spotted how unusual the description of the girl is and described it as otherworldly. So once you've had a careful look for any inferences you can draw from the text, you can then zoom in on a key language or structural feature in each of your chosen sections. Make a note of what those features are. In other words, give them their correct name using the correct subject term. Then jot down what the possible effect might be. This is the most important part. Here, Student A has highlighted the repeated use of the word white and linked it to the idea of ghosts. Try to avoid vague statements that don't really mean anything like, it makes me interested, or it keeps me reading on to find out what happens next. Instead, make notes on what you're led to imagine or how you're made to feel. If you need some more help with this, you could re-watch the Tips for Success pod for Question 2. You might even like to pause this pod now and try this approach for yourself using an extract of your own. Once you have your annotations in place, you should be able to hit all of the descriptors in the mark scheme. So let's take a look at how Student A used those parts of the source to answer the question. Remember, this is just part of their response. Press pause now to give yourself time to read it through, and press play again when you're ready. Take a look at these sections of the answer. Can you see here how the student is responding to the statement with their ideas about Montag meeting the girl? They've supported each point with a part of the text they've highlighted and added in what was suggested to them. This is showing very clear and sensible comprehension skill. You can also see how the student has identified 3 different interesting methods from within their chosen sections: the question, the use of repetition, and a key adjective, and made a sensible comment about how they're affected by them. This is all added up to a very clear, sensible, and relevant answer, which would achieve a level 3 on the mark scheme. But could they have done more? Let's take a look at how this response could move up a level by looking at an extract from Student B. Press pause now to give yourself time to read it through carefully, and then press play again when you're ready. The first thing you might notice here is that this answer uses all of the same parts of the source as Student A, but there's a difference in the way the answer has been presented. This student uses quotations from the text in a slightly different way and cherry-picks tiny snippets of text, embedding them into the answer. They also use a little more variety in the way they introduce their inferences. The work on methods shows a little more detail and depth here. For example, their discussion of the word white expands to include some thoughts about personification too. Finally, the comments on effect are expressed in a slightly more sophisticated way. This style of writing comes with practice, and would push the student up to a level 4 in the mark scheme. We'll leave it there. Some tips for success with this question are: pick out and highlight roughly 3 good chunks of the source, annotate and plan carefully, think about what's suggested to you and what you can infer, and zoom in on language and structure and discuss the effect. It's a really good idea to practice writing a clear and sensible answer, then revisit it after a little break, to see how you could add some polish and sparkle to the way it's phrased, or to add more detail. Good luck.